So today, I want to talk to you about something that messes with so many of us here, especially in midlife, and that is the word comparison. And especially when we're looking at different forms of media, and so what I would love for you to do right now, if you have other forms of things going on, please stop scrolling for just a second, because this is one of those things that can steal our peace before you've even realized what's even happened. You've already given it permission to steal away from you the peace. And so here's the thing, the internet doesn't even have to be mean. Although the people on there can be, right? We know that there's plenty out there who are mean. But all we have to see is someone else's success story, their weight loss before and after photos, or their fancy house and the way they've redecorated or remodeled their bedroom. And all of a sudden, that insecurity inside of us starts waking up. And so your inner mean girl will take it from there, right? So nobody has to be mean, because your inner mean girl is going to make sure that there's plenty of mean to go around. And then we do that thing where our body responds. We end up dropping our head, we shrink away, we start picking ourselves apart. And it's like we're standing under a shadow that only highlights what we already feel sensitive about. Like if you've ever been in a room where the shadows are really bad and all of a sudden you can see every wrinkle on our face. And that's because the shadow highlights what we are trying to hide. And so today we're going to be breaking that comparison loop with just a simple method that I use the moment I get triggered. And I call it the SNAP method. And so by the end of this, you're going to be able to spot those comparisons so much faster, stop that spiral sooner, and get back to that inner peace and confidence so that you can show up as God says who you are. So if you're new around here, hello, I'm Michelle. I'm a Christian beauty strategist for midlife women who feel invisible, and you're ready to walk into your calling, but you may not know where to start. Okay. So before we get started, let me ask you this question. Have you ever found yourself being totally fine, and then one scroll, one television show, one walk through the checkout line, one photo, right? One comment, all of a sudden your mood has been flipped? And so let me know by commenting me in the chat. And if you're listening from a car, doing dishes or anything like that, what I want you to do is to respond by saying, "That's me," out loud. And I find that when we say things out loud, even when it's ourself, your mind, your body, and your spirit, they all jump on the same page. And so you're basically telling comparison, you're not going to drive the car today when you say that out loud. Okay. And so for us at this stage, it used to actually be easier to start your day strong. I'm a kid from the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. And so it was easier for us, right? We still dealt with comparison, but it mostly showed up in real life, right? You might have had a coworker, a neighbor, a friend at church, and maybe a magazine cover at the checkout line. But now comparison has moved into our bedrooms, and it's waiting on our nightstand, because the first thing you touch in the morning is your phone. And it's not even because you're addicted to your phone. Some of us are, some of us aren't, but it's because your alarm is usually on your phone. And so you go, you reach out and you grab it and you turn off your alarm, and there it is. There's a notification. And then what's wild is even when you want to start your day with the Lord first, half of us are using the Bible app. And so when we open up our phones to go read the Bible with such great intentions, all it takes is a little buzz notification, one headline, or someone liking your post, and or even a text, and it's like, boom, you're not in the Word, And I'll just tell on myself for a minute. This has happened to me more times than I'd really like to admit. And, I love tea. And so before I go and grab my cup of tea, before my quiet time, half the time I catch myself doing just a quick look on my phone for the news, sending birthday messages on Facebook. I love doing that. And then, or maybe even checking my stocks before the market opens, and then suddenly it's been 15 minutes lost in my day, right? And I hope I'm not the only one here who does this. But here's the part I really want you to hear today, because this is the sneaky part. And it's the part that I am happy to share out loud. But most of us don't think that we scroll that much, right? We think we're completely above it. We think, I'm just checking a few things. It's for my business, or I'm making sure my family has a message. But those first minutes, they don't just fill your time in your day. They actually set the thermostat and the foundation for your day, because you didn't just check your phone. You let the world hand you the first thoughts for your day, right? And we really want the Lord to hand us those first thoughts of our day. So, and if our first thoughts are urgency, comparison, bad news, everybody else's highlight reels, right? It's no wonder why our confidence might feel shaky by 9 a.m. when we show up at work, you know? And so I can't wait to share what I have found actually works in that moment when we see comparison and we jump right in, because you're not going to need more willpower. Um, and just so you know, I have made a worksheet that goes with today's episode. So you can completely turn this into action instead of just an aha moment while you're listening. And so I'll tell you exactly where you can grab that in my Facebook group as we wrap things up. But all right, let's go ahead and slow down for just a second, because this process happens at lightning speed. So fast that most of us don't even realize that we're in the middle of it until it's already taken us to a heavy place. And so here's the loop. Once you can see it, you can stop it. And that's the beauty of this whole topic. But it starts with a trigger. And a trigger can be something that's completely obvious, like someone's before and after photos, someone's big announcement and celebratory moment, um, someone's perfect vacation, or their perfect remodel, right? But sometimes that trigger is way smaller than that. It can just be a photo tag, and or a friend's highlight reel that you're happy for them, but you just caught you off guard. A comment that hits a tender spot to something you posted, or something someone else posted even. It's seeing a woman your age, like looking completely effortless, and then suddenly you feel like you're trying too hard, and you may even think that you look great too, but all of a sudden when it feels effortless, when you look at them, all of a sudden you're just like, ah, I worked so hard for this, And so that's step number one, the trigger. And so step two is what I call the inner mean girl narrative. And this is the part that feels like it comes completely out of nowhere. But it's usually the same handful of lines on repeat, no matter what the trigger is. Okay. And so it might sound like, must be nice, if you like that kind of hard edge to the voice, or you should be further along than this, or look at you. Who do you think you are? And then maybe why can't you get it all together? Like they have it all together. Why can't you get it all together? And so what's so sneaky is the post didn't even say those things, right? Your inner mean girl did. And then there's the step three, and that's where shame. And that shame shows up in our posture. And once we walk with our posture that way, you feel it in your body, your head drops, your shoulders round over, you get smaller. And that's what I mean by that shadow effect I mentioned at the beginning, because once shame is running the show, it's like a spotlight is turned on to all your insecurities and all the areas that you don't want to highlight, and what you feel really sensitive about. It's all out there for the world to see. Because anytime we see someone all rounded over in shame, we're thinking, oh, what's going on with them? Right? So the loop is trigger, inner mean girl narration, and then shame, right? And once you're in that shame place, you start living and making choices from that place. I know a lot of my listeners have life coaches and follow many life coaches. And so it's that belief shame cycle, starting with your thoughts. And so that is why comparison is never just a thought. It turns into a mood, and then it turns into our actions and our behavior. So, like I said, when you start your day and let them hand you your first thoughts, you can't help but respond out of that, right? So here's where it gets really interesting, because not everybody responds to shame the same way. And so I want to make sure that I point this out, because some women shut down and hide. That is more my MO. When we get fueled by it, Sometimes shame can turn you into overdrive. And that also can be me. So before I teach you how to interrupt this shame cycle with the SNAP method, I want to help you identify your default response, because that's going to help you catch that trigger even faster when you see yourself behaving that way. Okay. And this is kind of important because once shame shows up, it doesn't affect every woman the same way, right? For some of us, we want to disappear, and that shame lights us up and sets us on fire, and it might become motivation for something. A lot of women are motivated from shame, unfortunately. But that shame puts a lot of pressure on us. And so in the end result, you might end up with a lot of adrenal fatigue. And so that trigger isn't only what you saw. The trigger is also that reaction that automatically kicks in, right? That's also part of the trigger process that takes us through to that cycle. And so your inner mean girl can put on a few different costumes as well. So see if any of these you recognize. So one is the fixer. She goes, okay, new plan, new diet, new routine, new products. Let's fix it. Like, let's get this together. And you feel that urgent pressure. Like you can't relax until you improve and fix yourself or fix whatever the problem is. The next one is called the performer, right? She goes, I got to prove myself, do more, be impressive, look more put together. Don't let anyone see me struggle. Everything starts feeling like a stage or a mask that you wear. And then there's the hider, right? She says, I don't want to draw any attention to myself. Don't wear that. Don't speak up. Don't post. Don't go. And she makes shrinking feel like safety, but truly, then you can't shine and do what God's called you to do. And then there's the number. Number, number, not number. But anyway, she says, just scroll, just snack, just shop, just zone out, like buffer, right? And anything that's going to make you feel better than the sting of living in that shame. So none of these are random, right? They're just patterns that we operate from instinctually. And once you can name your pattern, you stop being blindsided by it when it shows up. Right. And so you don't have to live in the shame of like, why am I eating this whole bag of potato chips right now? You can actually go, okay, that's my pattern. And so I've obviously been triggered. Let's think back about what just happened. Instead of living in shame, why can't I stop myself from eating this whole bag of chips or this bag of cookies? And so, because here's the goal isn't to stop comparing yourself necessarily, because that would be impossible. You wake up every day and you're going to be filled with all of this information. Um, but it's to stop the moment that comparison hands the keys to that inner mean girl in your life, right? Where shame sets in. Okay. And so that's exactly what the SNAP method is. It's there to interrupt that pass of the keys from the comparison trigger to the inner mean girl. And so that's where that shift, where you can get your peace back before that spiral sets in place. All right. So here's the method that I promised you, and it's called SNAP. Okay. SNAP. And so this is what you do the moment you feel that trigger and that shift, when your stomach kind of drops a little bit, when your shoulders kind of tighten up, and when your thoughts start kind of racing. That's the cue to start this process. And so the S for SNAP is spot it. Spot the moment comparison starts, not when you're already in the full spiral. But if you get that far, stop it there and spot the spiral, right? Because this is when it all begins. And you just say, okay, this is comparison, like label it, and that's it. That's simple, but completely powerful, because now you can see it. It's not in the shadows and hiding. So you're naming it. It now stops being invisible. In SNAP is name your need. This is where most women kind of skip. It feels a little bit like, if we don't understand the why do we do this? And also, I think too, women, we've been trained that it's bad to have needs because that makes us needy, which is not true. We all have needs. Okay. So I want you to be able to name your need. Ask yourself, like, what am I needing right now? You know, because a lot of the times that comparison isn't the real issue. It's just kind of the smoke alarm. And so, like you might be thinking, like you're comparing your body to someone else, but you're really needing is reassurance, right? Because you haven't felt good in your skin lately. And so you just name the need, reassurance. Or if you're thinking about comparing success, what you really could be needing is direction because you're feeling a little bit unsure about what your next step is, right? Or if you're thinking about energy and people's routines, you might be needing more rest because you're tired. And when you're tired, it makes you feel, it feels louder when you're seeing everyone have everything put together, right? So instead of letting the inner mean girl grab the mic, you're going to pause and you name your need. So, okay, I need reassurance right now. What can I do to reassure myself that I'm doing the right thing? Or I need direction, need rest, all the same things, right? Naming it puts you back in the driver's seat. And then A for snap is align with the truth, right? And this is the turning point of the whole thing because the inner mean girl, she is loud and she's got a lot of things to say, but she's not the authority of your life, right? So what you want to do is you want to align with what's true, especially what God says is true for you and about you, right? And it could be just one sentence. It could be a scripture. It could be, it doesn't need to be a full sermon is what I'm trying to say, right? God didn't miss when he made you. You are perfect. He rolls out the red carpet for you. You're not behind. You're just being led in his perfect timing. My calling does not require to live the life that she lives, right? And if it's hard for you to come up with something, simply you can just say, Lord, I need you to remind me of who I am right now. Okay? Like that right there is plenty fine. And then the P in snap is pivot because this is where you change direction with an action, right? And I like to make my action to look up. That's my reset. That's my pivot because comparison almost always comes with the posture of the head down, the shoulders in, you become small, right? But when you pivot and you look up from your phone, right? You lift your posture, that chin level, shoulders back, but you also look up to the heavens where your hope comes from, right? Even if it's just for that breath in prayer, you're looking up because you recognize he's the only one who can fix this, right? And it's like you're telling your nervous system, we're safe. I trust it. It's in his hands. He's got it. Right. And then do just any tiny next step, like close that app, stand up, drink some water, step outside, open the Bible, anything that moves you out of the trance. It's that simple, you guys. It's that simple. And so I want to bring this all home because today wasn't about trying to never compare ourselves again. That, like I said, is it's almost like an impossible feat. We almost have to remind ourselves by the minute sometimes. Okay. But it's about catching that comparison loop faster so it doesn't steal your peace and your joy and your confidence and your calling for the rest of the day. Okay. Remember the loop. It's trigger, inner mean girl narration, and then shame. And so when you see any of those in operation, you can use the snap method and to interrupt that loop and that spot it, name the need, right? Align with the truth and pivot. Okay. And so if you're anything like me, you can have this powerful aha moment while you're listening to this podcast. This happens to me all the time. And if I don't have a piece of paper next to me to write down the notes, life happens and then I forget by the end of the day. Okay. And so that's why I make a worksheet for every episode that I teach. And so you can go and turn this into action and experience your breakthrough. Okay. So the way you get it is you go join my free Facebook group called Making Life Beautiful Again. You go to the featured post of the week or the files section and you can download it there. And so if you don't catch it the week that it goes live, that you'll find it in the file sections, but it'll help identify that trigger, guys, recognize that inner mean girl and choose your personal snap pivot method. So you're not trying to figure this all out in the middle of the spiral. When you're in survival, your brain cannot think this way easily. And so one more thing, if this episode made you think of a friend, send it to her. Like, save her from her inner mean girl bully, right? There's a lot of bullies out there. Let's get out there and let's save our friends from this inner mean girl bully. We should not be talking to ourselves this way. But you can just text her and say, this reminded me of us. Let's stop the scroll before it steals our peace and our joy. Okay. Okay. So next week, we're going to be having some fun because we're going to be talking about the metabolic beauty, how to look more lit and glowing from within. And so we're going to keep it simple, do doable, midlife friendly techniques and talks because we're not adding more complicated things and routines to our already full life, right? I know me, if I have extra time in my day, I want to spend it with my grandbabies. And so I assume the same is true for you. All right. I love you guys. I am cheering you on, and I will see you next week.